I actually really like
Squadron Leader Bruce Chalmers, and it's an honour to be your Master of Ceremonies. We are currently awaiting the arrival of Her Excellency the Honourable Kerry Sanderson AC, Governor of Western Australia, and then the dawn service will begin. Her Excellency will be met at the top of the stairs by the Warden of the State War Memorial and by the State President of the RSLWA, Mr Peter Aspinall. The official party, accompanied by federal, state and local government officials, members of the Consular Corps and other invited guests, will soon proceed to the memorial for the service to begin. The largest contingent here this morning are representatives of unit and kindred associations, those who served in the armed forces, including a good many of our nation's allies. For those of you who are out of line of sight, there are large screens positioned around Kings Park which may allow you to follow the dawn service. You'll be able to tell when the official party and the wreath layers are approaching the memorial, as you will hear the beat of a muffled drum. The flags on the memorial will be at half-mast for this part of the ceremony. You will see other flags around the concourse. These are the Australian and New Zealand national flags, the Union flag of Great Britain, and the red ensign of the Merchant Marine. Once the official party is in place, a long single note will sound from a bugle called Stand Fast, and a signal for everyone to cease whatever they're doing, to be both silent and still. Her Excellency will then lay the first wreath, followed by the President of RSLWA, and then the representative of Premier of Western Australia, the Honourable Mark McGowan, MLA, the Honourable Roger Cook, Deputy Premier, and so on until all the wreaths have been laid. At the conclusion of the wreath-laying ceremony, the State President of RSLWA will recite the Ode. The Ode is followed by the solemn and evocative The Last Post, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. A 1-minute silence will follow the last post. This is a central part of our commemorative service this morning and serves as a salute, not just to the brave men who served at Gallipoli, but to the tens of thousands of Australian and New Zealander men and women who, in the service of their nation, paid the ultimate sacrifice. You will know when the 1-minute silence is over by another bugle call, releasing everyone from Stand Fast before the sounding of the Reveille. The singing of the Australian and New Zealand national anthems will follow, with flags raised to their mastheads. I would like to now take this opportunity to ask that all mobile phones are switched off or on silent, and we seek your cooperation on maintaining a respectful silence during the more solemn elements of this commemoration. Also, in keeping with the solemnity of the service, we respectfully ask you not to use flash photography. The dawn service will begin in a few minutes.
Catapult party, outwards, turn. Catapult party, rest on, arms.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I ask you to now please stand for the arrival of Her Excellency, the Honourable Kerry Sanderson, AC, Governor of Western Australia.
They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
Catapult party, attention! Catapult party, last post, present, arms. Catapult party, attention!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please stand for the national anthem of New Zealand, followed by the national anthem of Australia.
Present arms.
E oa atua mō ngā iwi mātaura a ta whakarongo nā mea roha noa kia hua ko te pai Kia tauto a ta whai, mana ki tia mai, Aotearoa. God of nations, at thy feet, in the bonds of love we meet. Hear our voices, we entreat. God defend our free land. God Pacific's triple stars from the shafts of strife and war. Hear her praises heard afar. God defend New Zealand.
Australian souls, let us rejoice, for we are young and free, with golden soils and wealth for toil. Our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Catapult Party, attention!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the dawn service address will now be given by Brigadier Peter Moore.
Significant day today is in our national consciousness. Today we reflect on the service and the sacrifice of those who have served our nation in conflicts past and present, and its significance on us and our way of life. We gather to respect and remember the sailors, soldiers, airmen and airwomen who have served our country in war and peace. We are not here to glorify war. We are here to reflect on almost incomprehensible sacrifice of so many young lives in so many conflicts that Australia has been involved in, and recognise the service of all. But why Anzac Day? Why is this significant over 100 years after the event? Little did the soldiers who landed on the 25th of April 1915 imagine what they were embarking on would become the thing of legend. And from the crucible that forged that legend the Anzac spirit would rise and become an important part of the Australian culture and psyche. So over 100 years later, we need to ask, what was the landing of Gallipoli all about? Who were the Anzacs? Why did they come to symbolise the epitome of the Australian and New Zealand fighting forces? What relevance does Anzac Day have to us today? Most of us are aware that on dawn on the 25th of April 1915, 16,000 Australian and New Zealanders surged ashore at the foot of the rugged cliffs of the Dardanelles Peninsula in Turkey. The first wave that stormed ashore consisted of the 3rd Brigade of the AIF and included the famous Western Australian 11th Battalion. From the very start, confusion reigned supreme, and this poor and sorry state of affairs continued for most of the campaign. The idea of the campaign was Churchill's. His intent was to open up the Dardanelles and to give Allied shipping access to the Black Sea, to bring up help to Russia, who was fighting Germany on the Eastern Front, and perhaps force Turkey out of the war. It was, as historians say, an ill-conceived campaign in pursuit of vague objectives, premised on an underestimation of the military prowess and character of the Turkish soldier and the tactical advantages they held. Our soldiers were the cream of Australia and New Zealand. The Anzacs, the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, all of them were volunteers. They were the fittest and best men of our young nations. They committed themselves without hesitation to the nobility of their cause and fought with great courage, skill and audacity in a battle that they could never have imagined. Their actions and deeds were amplified and sometimes exaggerated by the press of the day. This started the legend of Anzac. The image of a tall, bronzed fighting man from the bush emerged. This was not necessarily a true reflection of who they were, and it's certainly not a reflection of our forces today. In the 8 months which followed their first landing, some 50,000 Anzacs were committed to the battlefront before withdrawing. When the last of them was drawn, as winter set in, more than 11,000 Anzacs lay dead, 8,600 Australians. Alongside over 36,000 British, French and Indian comrades. In and amongst them, an unknown number of Turkish soldiers lay dead, estimated to be in the hundreds of thousands. In the end, the Gallipoli campaign was a disastrous defeat, and the Anzacs were forced to withdraw. So why do we commemorate Anzac Day? We must remember at the time that Australia and New Zealand were fledgling nations, in existence for just 14 years. To put this into context, Australia and New Zealand did not exist as countries when the men who fought in Gallipoli were born. They were born into the colonies of Western Australia, Tasmania, Queensland, South Australia, New South Wales, Victoria and New Zealand. Here they came together as Australians for the first time on the world stage. They knew that they would be judged by their commitment, their courage, and in turn their new countries would be judged. It was their character, the sacrifice, the determination, the belief, the comradeship that they displayed, which would set the standard that would inspire their countrymen for generations to come. General Sir John Monash described the character of the Australian soldier. His bravery was founded upon his sense of duty to his unit, comradeship to his fellows, emulation to uphold his traditions, and combative spirits to avenge the hardships and suffering upon the enemy. So clearly the achievements of the original Anzacs are not measured by victory on the battlefield. The Allies could not defeat the Turks, and as a result were forced to withdraw. But it was on those faraway shores, in the foreign and exotic land, the legend of the Anzac spirit emerged. It is a spirit that has inspired the deeds and actions of future troops. The characteristics that emerge and resonate from the Anzac spirit are sacrifice, courage, both moral and physical, mateship, loyalty, commitment, dedication, duty, respect and tradition. On every 25th of April since 1915, Australians and New Zealanders at home and abroad have gathered to commemorate the actions of every one of our servicemen and women, not just those of the Anzacs. We remember on this day those who served and fell in both world wars, on the sea, on the land and in the air, and in other conflicts such as Korea, Malaya, Borneo, Vietnam, Iraq, the Gulf, Afghanistan. We remember and thankful for those who have served and are currently on actions in operations such as Somalia, Rwanda, East Timor, the Solomon Islands, or operations to the north of Australia. They have all contributed to establish our peaceful nation through their service. It was the Anzac spirit that gave us pride in our services, our people, not in war. It gives Australia the belief that when put to the test, we would not yield and we would not fail. The men and women who forged the Anzac spirit and the subsequent generations of sailors, soldiers and airmen and women made sure that those who lead them earned their respect. They all understand and understood the values of independence, freedom and fairness, and above all, possess the willingness to defend these rights. Because freedom only survives as long as there are people that are willing to defend it. This is the Anzac spirit handed down to us and is ours to pass on to future generations. If we look for the example of the Anzacs in our modern world for inspiration, we can learn from it. Look after your mates, be loyal, do the right thing, do your duty regardless of the personal consequence, and have the courage to say on what you do, what you believe to be right, and importantly, resist what you believe to be wrong. It is easy to give service to the Anzac spirit, but it's much harder to live up to it. If we lose touch with the values imbued by the Anzac spirit, we lose all that goes on with it. Anzac Day is more than just a commemoration of a single historical event. Its spirit embodies the actions of all Australians and New Zealanders who have served their country in all of the services. It is an important time to reflect on we as a society enjoy the luxury and comfort that we consider normal. Think about why we have the freedom to voice our opinions, to elect and change our government in a peaceful and democratic manner, and live in a free and prosperous society today. These freedoms have been and currently are defended by servicemen and women who are prepared to serve their nation whenever and however the government of the day sees fit. They are due to a great extent to the courage and sacrifice of those who have gone before us and the price that they were willing to pay to secure this future for us and for future generations. As you look around, you'll see many people wearing medals. They could be old or young, in uniform or in civvies, male or female. It could be a young mum pushing a pram with 3 kids, or it could be an old man with a walking stick. They've all served their country with pride and a duty imbued upon them by the Anzac spirit. So why is Anzac Day important? Because it's an opportunity to reflect, remember and be thankful for the service of others. As a society, we not only have a responsibility to respect, remember and honour them, but we have a duty to care for all those who have returned and go amongst us with the greatest compassion and humility, lest we forget.